I don't know. I'll figure out some sort of official introduction because as if you need any. Project Runway. I'm so excited. All right. I have been an uber fan of that show. So right now, my 6 degrees of separation with Tim Gunn, thanks to you being here, through the roof. I'm so excited. All right. We had a number of questions. One of being from me is that, Heidi Klum, she always comes out just so gorgeous, drop dead, wonderful. Is she as fabulous or does she smell like, 12 cat litter box? I mean, we don't know that part of her. What's she like in person?
She's great. She was actually ended up being one of my favorites besides Tim, obviously.
Well, and even just of the first few shows that we've seen of you, she's been rooting for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, she is that fun personality off camera too, because like during takes and stuff, we would sit there and have face battles back and forth.
Really?
She would stand up there on stage and she'd be standing, waiting for everything to go on, and she would sit there and she'd raise her eyebrow or stick her tongue out at us, and everyone else would just laugh. So I would just keep that serious face like she would and just make faces back.
Oh, cute.
So we would. I mean, she is so much fun. She brings a lot of life to that hectic time that we have. She just makes it a lot funner for us.
Well, like when she came out in the stilts, I thought that was fierce.
Oh, yeah.
What a good sport.
She's willing to do anything, to just make the show 10 times, more interesting, I guess.
Did Seal ever pop by?
No, he didn't. We never got to see him. So I know we would have loved to, just to get that glimpse of him. But we never ever actually got to meet Seal. No.
Okay, now you can't talk about future shows.
Right.
But Michael Kors got married Tuesday. I'm assuming because you're here, you did not get invited.
Well, no. I don't think any of us got us invited. Everyone's kind of back in their own respective towns. We're all going back for Fashion Week for September 9th. And then some of us are respectively working on collections of, things of that
Which
nature.
we will leave out any details on that. But if I were to, say, bump into your sisters, your mother, or perhaps your boyfriend and say, hey, how'd it go meeting Tim Gunn? Would they be able to respond, or are they also under restrictive contracts?
They're also under restrictive contracts, yes. Everyone that knows what I'm doing or, has pictures on the website, because you can go on there and see, pictures and all that good stuff, they all have signed, we will sue you, or if you say anything, I mean, it's all about a big secret, in the end. Well, it's keeping up, the secret of.
I'm a huge fan of the show.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it blown anyway.
Right.
So even when the cameras are off, I will not be torturing you. But maybe. So as long as they're on, we'll say that.
I was like, she's going to want to ask the no questions.
No. Because, seriously, I've been such a big fan. Our big questions is behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. It's obvious when we watch it, Heidi will come out in this beautiful outfit and it's okay, contestants, it's your new challenge.
Right.
But you guys are wearing the clothes you wore on the Judgment of the previous runway show. What is the turnaround time? It's obvious you're not getting a full week. How often?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's next day. I mean, we were there, for a good month and a half to 2 months.
Well, so we can stay on the safe side.
Yeah.
Let's say just the first 3 competitions. Did you get any time off? Was there a weekend? When did you get to go? Did you get to do fun things in New York?
Oh, no, you're secluded from the outside world. That's how the competition works. They want you secluded. There's no inspiration, no music, no TV. You don't really get to see what's going on outside. It's like putting a designer in a box and seeing what they can do without any outside influence. So it all's coming strictly from your mind. So when the judges, when they said my birdseed dress kind of referenced McQueen, I didn't know where that was coming from because it's actually referencing a dress that I did from New Orleans Fashion Week. So it's all about, secluding to see what a designer can do without outside influence and just what they've learned throughout their whole design path.
Speaking of that dress,
right.
You were robbed.
Yes.
I am so sorry. But who couldn't make a shirt out of lopping some holes into a dog fabric thing that was a fabric, and she looked fatter? Oh, he's so popular.
I know.
That actually gave him a good break, though. But no, she looked heavier. His model, I'm sorry, that was fabric, and she totally looked heavier once that outfit was done. So you were robbed.
In the end, it's all about perspective. Fashion's always all about, it's all about, well, it could swing this way or swing that way, but I've been excited just to be in the top 3 for the first 3 episodes,
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I researched it, and that's the 3rd time that's ever happened on Project Runway.
Okay.
Gretchen Jones did it last year, and then on the 2nd season, Santino did it.
Ooh, and he fared very well. Now, This is another, speaking of the two things from that. Now, that one you were robbed, but the other one we felt you gave away. This was one of the questions we got, and it was the one that you did, the stilts competition with Laura. And we wanted to know, why did you give her all the credit? It really seemed like you were doing it.
Well, in the end, when I started building that cage for the bottom of it, I started on it. She started sewing. So it took me about an hour and a half to figure out, okay, this isn't going to work. So in all fairness, she actually got a little bit more done than I did. She probably got, 1% more sewing than I did. But for me, I wasn't going to get up there and fight. We had worked so well together at that point, And she's a monster in itself when it comes to sewing. She'll whip out a dress much quicker than I can.
Wow.
But for me, I was going to have the opportunity to win another challenge. Being in the top 3 for the first 3 episodes so far, I was ecstatic. And, I would rather win a challenge by myself than win a group challenge.
Well, that was very admirable. It was good, and it was true that it was nice to see that you guys. That was the other thing. This leads to another question that we have, is that one of the Facebook people said they wanted to know if perhaps because you did have testicular cancer and you went through that, did that make it so that you could put this competition in perspective? Well, sure, it's winning the Super Bowl of fashion.
Right.
It still is a competition. It's not life or death. Is that why? Because you've been remaining very calm, cool, and collective. Very great representative.
Anything life-changing like that's going to put things into perspective. You're more driven. Things are different. I always say this, and I say this in a different way, but the crap just seems to fall away when something like that happens to you. You don't have time for the BS that life has to throw at you or someone else's BS. Regardless of how negative something could have been, I always turned it into a positive. When Tim came around and said, okay, this could get a little pubic patch, with the feather type thing. What many people don't know is I actually had 3 skirts to show him that I showed him, and the feather option was just one of them. But, through editing and stuff, they wanted to make it seem like, oh, well, he might, they don't want to give it all away.
Well, sure, and you got to go with the fun response, so that was a good one.
So, cancer definitely put a lot of things in perspective for me. The whole time I was doing chemo and stuff like that, I remained in school because it was going to push me back a full year, and I had been in school too long enough. I was ready to get done with it. Fashion kind of got me through a hard time, in my whole life, and I'm just grateful to still be doing what I love to be doing, so it definitely puts a lot of things in perspective, just with life in general. Yeah.
Well, that's so cool. And you started something because of this.
Yeah, I haven't officially launched because I haven't,
a little busy.
I have been busy since I graduated. I actually haven't had time to sit down and say, okay, what do I want to do with my life? It's just kind of all came. But I've wanted to start a I'm Rocking One campaign or Rock One, like Lance Armstrong had his, yellow wristbands, but I've always wanted to do something that was fashion geared, to give back.
One ball earring, no,
right.
sorry.
I would love to do like a T-shirt, or things of that nature. But like for instance, I've been contacted through several people. In New Orleans, there's a girl, I think she has leukemia, who's wanted to be a model for the day. Her outcome doesn't look great, so they want to do a photo shoot and like a model session. They contacted me to see if I would design a custom dress for her, and I'm like, of course. She's like 11. So I'm really excited about doing that, and I contacted a couple other people just to get more involved because I think it's important to really give back, for what I was given. Yeah.
Very, very cool. All right, now let's go back to the nitty-gritty stuff. Now, couple of questions. One, all right, like the first episode of Survivor, after that show was over, you'd think anybody who had tried to get on that show would learn how to build a fire with a couple of sticks. Why is it that the unconventional challenge threw so many people off? Did none of those designers watch previous shows? You seem to be the only one who went, oh, unconventional, I get it. What was that?
I don't know. I've watched every season, it's like, and Laura's the same way. Laura, we would be like, okay, this happened this season, what's going to happen next, I think when you start getting into building the dress and you're there and you have 30 minutes to shop, because they started a stopwatch and, we had 30 minutes to shop, your mind just kind of goes everywhere, and for a lot of people, they really thrive at that, and a lot of people, they just seem to fall by the wayside, is what happens in the end. What happens in the end. But it's a game. You know, it was a game to me. It was a competition at the same time, but it's all a mind game. You know, you got to think, what are those keywords that's, you know, when watching the show, you watch Tim and what he says about the challenge. What are those keywords that Tim is telling you? You know, for instance, on the stilt challenge, he said Paris, couture, which means no costume.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so you really got to take the overall strategy. And when he said, you know, non-conventional, don't get a textile, those were what I heard, you know. But like on Bert's effort, that was just a lack of effort. That was the fact he didn't want to use a hot glue gun and was just being a stubborn old man.
That leads us to our highest drama.
Oh, yes,
okay,
yes.
now I know you can't talk too much about this, but there was some previews about it. So I know you've had your moment with Bert. But going back to his competition with Victor as a teammate, Victor had said on the runway that he had done some sketches, and Bert said he hadn't. And then Victor said, you can check go ahead and do a plug.
Right. HP tablet, yeah.
Yeah. Did they ever go back to that? And is there, you know, what happens? So Bert lied? I mean, what do we know?
To my knowledge, you know, what is addressed on the runway, that's what's addressed on the runway. We don't physically pull out all of this stuff, you know. You kind of got to defend yourself and make, you know, as eloquently as possible up there in your own kind of way. I mean, to get up there and banter back and forth is probably not the best idea, as you can see. But everything reveals itself in the end. That's how I feel about that. You know, karma and, you know, you've seen a preview where I get into it with Bert, you know, and you've seen a preview where Josh gets into it with Bert. So obviously something is going on with the Bert and not necessarily, you know. So, you know, I mean, you just have to be able to defend yourself up there properly, I think, you know, when it comes down to it, you know, and hold your own. You know, I mean, Bert can try and lie, or you know, but in the end, that may catch up with him.
Hey, but the villain usually gets to stick around for a while, so it might be some good in the mind game playing on Bert's side. Then just going way early, we were discussing this time they showed us the preview of your auditions. This was another great Facebook question. Were you nervous at all when you started hanging around with all these other people doing interviews? Did that kind of
for the original casting when it was at the 20 and we had to go in front of like Tim hiding them. It was more exciting at first because, you know, they're filming us coming in and unpacking all of our stuff. And at that point, I felt pretty good about where I stood. You know, I got to eyeballing all the people around me. There were a couple that one of the guys actually left. I thought his stuff was really good. It was very well tailored, but
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But his end thing was he only brought jackets to show. He didn't bring,
but
you
they
know.
Were fine.
Oh yes, they were really good. But it was nerve-wracking going in there because, I mean, you've got all these cameras for the first time. You're walking in front of them and I barely remember any of it. You know, the only thing I remember is they liked this one dress on the end, and all they kept talking about was the freaking scarf that I had on. You know, Heidi wouldn't even look at what I was trying to show her.
But she liked you from the get-go, so that was good.
She wanted me to take it off and give it to her. Even after, you know, it was said and done with, and they announced the top 16, and we toasted our wine glasses, and we were leaving. She's like, you know, her and Tim were like, she's got her eye on that scarf, you know.
Did you ever give it to her?
No. But I'm having one knitted for her.
Oh, very cool. And this was kind of a random question.
Yeah.
What did you guys eat? What was the food in the workroom?
They catered out for us every day. You know, regardless if it was hamburgers or tacos. One time, the Greek was always the best food that they brought. I'm a very finicky eater, so I would get really annoyed with some of the stuff that they brought, just because I don't like certain onions and stuff. You know, I'm very picky about certain things. But they would usually just cater out, you know, Boston Market, you know, things of that nature.
Okay, and as long as we're on the topic of random nitty-gritty personal stuff, how many designers in those rooms with how many bathrooms?
4 in one bathroom.
Because that always, every season, I'm always like, how do you all get ready? Yeah. That seems to me that should have been more fighting in those areas.
I mean, it literally takes me 10 minutes to get ready. You know, I'm not one of the other divas who takes, you know, an hour. Oliver would literally take 45 minutes to put on makeup.
Bedazzling, it's hard to do.
So, I mean, we had a shower rotation, and it just came about that I was always the last one to shower, and I was always the first one ready to get mic'd.
Now, as the shows are airing, you obviously can talk about it with your immediate family and stuff, but are you calling any of the other designers going, ooh, they edited you? I mean, is there anything like that?
Yeah, well, me and Josh McKinley, we always call back and forth. We have this playful banter. As you saw when I was talking about his pants, I called them Beetlejuice. They reminded me of Beetlejuice.
I love that movie, though.
Yeah. It's this one particular scene of Beetlejuice where everything turns into the circus,
Yeah, it's when he comes up with the,
yeah. So he and I will call back and forth and, playful. And me and Anya tweet, I've missed her phone call several times because we're kind of on 2 different time zone type things.
She is your nemesis and a fan favorite.
Yes, I know. We keep going back and forth. I mean, she's got a whole country behind her. You know what I mean?
Yes, but you have Baton Rouge.
Yes, Baton Rouge and Louisiana did get on it, But she and I, she's the one I became the closest with. She and I definitely bonded right away, even in when the casting started.
She seemed to get along with a lot of the designers.
Oh, yeah.
You notice when, you guys would walk off the stage, she would be the one that would be hugging a lot of the other ones remaining. So she must seriously be very nice. But
she is genuinely just a very nice person. Everyone has questioned her on the whole sewing.
Exactly.
4 months. But in her defense, I can vouch and say that she sewed every single thing, that went down that runway. Not necessarily the best construction, but her view came across. And she has had a lot of teachers in Trinidad over this past 4 months. I do know that because she actually has her own line in Trinidad, and she has all of her sewers and whatnot. And they're all these older ladies who have really showed her some easy and quick ways to get around some things.
Sweat labor. Yeah. Okay, I understand. But the goal is though, when you move on and you get like Michael Kors stage, you think he's sewing his own stuff? No. So it works out in the end. I'm trying to see what questions I can press boundaries with, but I guess there's not too many. Is there anything that looking forward for you in the future that isn't necessarily Project Runway related, but still could be fashion? What are your plans? I mean,
I don't really have any right now. I'm just kind of on this ride, I think you kind of have to be open to where fashion can bring you, and I'm not going to limit myself. If I end up in Dallas, if I stay here, if I go to LA, if I go to New York. I've visited China and all the manufacturing that it has over there. They have great programs where they get, semi-well-established young designers, pair them with a manufacturer. You sketch, they make it. If your line's really good, several manufacturers will pick it up. So,
very cool.
And I have contacts through LSU with one of the teachers there. So, that's always an option. I think I'm just going to keep my mind open about it, stay where I'm at, ride this ride and see what happens.
Do we have a name for your line?
I've always called it Anthony Ryan Auld, my full name. Or just, I've always thought about Anthony Ryan. But as of now, I would just call it by my full name. Everyone knows me by Ryan. Anyone that's my friend or knows me. But Anthony Ryan Auld just has a nice ring to it.
Well, you have a nice ring to you. It's such a pleasure. And you have represented Baton Rouge so well. I'm so thrilled. Did I miss anything?
They need to go vote on Twitter. Break out the Twitter account and pound PR9 Anthony Ryan it. Yeah.
Yes, Project Runway. And, if you have any problems looking all that up, I did it several times just by going directly to Project Runway's site. And, of course, we will see you tonight.
Yes.
You'll be on the show. It's Thursday nights on Lifetime. I'm so happy you came by, and I have every hope that you will definitely, one way or another, I will be wearing your clothes. So.
Thank you so much for having me.